Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Hearts of Iron 4 Dev Diary. This week we've gone straight into the Dev Diary because we have to address the opening paragraph. As we continue to march through the harsh winters of Eastern Russia looking somewhere for a release date, we do have some information about it. Now, while there will be no announcement of a release date this time, they do say that it is close. Very close, in fact. So here's hoping that maybe over the next few weeks we will have some information about when No Step Back and 1.11 Barbarossa will finally be here. But with that aside, it's time to talk about this week's Dev Diary, which is something that I personally find quite interesting: modding changes. In case some of you didn't know, I do enjoy making some mods myself. Nothing major, I'm no Kaiserreich dev, but I do make some smaller things which I find enjoyable. So we start with one of the coolest aspects, which is characters. So previously in Hoi 4, all the different people that you'd have in the game, those were country leaders, generals, military leaders like navy, political advisors and operatives, they were all handled as individual different parts of the code. So each one would have to be created individually and would have had no relation to any other. With the new overhaul system, now you can have what they define as characters, where one particular entry can do all the different things, as many as they want, and be the same person. In the example we're given here, we can see that Georgy Zhukov can both be a leader of the army, a corps commander, with, we can see his skills there with attack and defense, etc. But we can also, in the same category, stick him as an advisor, in which here he is a military theorist. So with this new system, that means there's a lot of cool things you can do towards interplay. You could have a general who could also be an advisor, maybe a prime minister, who could also be your country's leader, the central leader of your entire country, as well as any other minor roles that you manage to stick them in. Unfortunately, there is one thing they cannot be, which is operatives, which was something I myself was wondering. Operatives, of course, can be captured and they can be killed, which means they have to be handled on a completely separate thing. Although I have to say, I am a little disappointed that there isn't the option to have, your semi-James Bond become the country's leader and then have to take a cyanide pill and your country's leader has just gone. Unfortunately, that level of interplay isn't there, but this is still pretty good all in all. So this also means that if a character is removed for some reason, let's say you set up an event to make them die, or maybe have them lose an election and be kicked out the country, you can make that all happen in one neat package where, let's say if they were also an advisor, they're just gone as soon as the character's gone. This also works in the inverse, meaning that if you want a character to suddenly become the country's leader, you can literally just add a single line of code into their character sheet, and now they're a country leader, as they've done here with Zhukov. On the flip side, if you wanted to handle this through maybe an event system or with a focus tree, there is also the line add country leader role, which means characters that previously weren't country leaders can now assume country leadership, and if you want to be able to promote them to become the country leader the second it's taken, you have the promote leader equals yes, which immediately makes them the country's leader. And it also makes making proper elections with different leaders being promoted a lot simpler. I'm thinking things like Millennium Dawn and Cold War, where there's lots of elections going on there. I feel like this would be a much better system for that. So what cool new things can you do with the character system beyond the level of interplay we're working with? Well, for one, you can add character flags. So that means that individual characters can now be assigned flags that happen that they can be checked against. We can now also make it so that advisors can be upgraded without actually having to create a whole new advisor, which means that upgrading people within the government is a cool thing that can work now. Yeah, I don't know, this character system has a lot of ways you can really play with it and make it so it feels like people are sort of working their way up your government. In addition, you can also save characters to be used as variables. I can't quite understand in which context I'd want to use this, but they made it so that they can spam the debug messages in the console. I'm sure there are people much more intelligent than me that can figure out how using characters as variables can be used in other parts of the game. So before we move on, I just wanted to talk about a cool interaction this could have with the Japanese. So if you go down the non-aligned branch, there is a path called the Modern Shogunate, and in its current format it doesn't really do too much. It kind of could use some additional features. And with this character system, you do have the ability of all of the previous samurai having samurai lineage as a trait to be much more interactive and have different aspects. So you could make it so that those people who are currently generals could also become political advisors. You could even have it, which would probably be best, that you have the option to promote somebody who has a samurai lineage to become the shogun of Japan, making sure that the emperor takes more of a ceremonial position. So moving on to railways, we begin by talking about how railways work in a way that buildings kind of work, where they connect provinces together to form a long chain, and that chain can be worked across with the modding tools. So the first thing they talk about is how in the new update it's going to be simple for people to change the way that railways are sort of drawn on a map using the nudger tool. When you type nudge in the console command, you can open it up and move around the way the railways are connected. In addition, if you want to make a railway appear, let's say through a focus or a decision, the way you do so is to build a railway as seen here and then create a path. Then, following in the path, the way in which you write the province IDs will be the direction of the railway line as it goes across the different tiles. This does mean if you wanted to create an extremely long railway that goes from, let's say, one side of the country to the other, you're going to have a very long string of just number. So, if you want to avoid that, what you can do is build a railway and then just say which province you want it to start at, which province you want it to target as its end goal, and it should use a what they call an advanced neural network based self-learning algorithm that uses blockchain, which effectively means it will figure out what the most optimal route is to build a railway from point A to point B. I can imagine this creates some interesting situations where, let's say, you want to build a railway starting in Kamchatka in eastern Russia, and you say that the end destination is, I don't know, the very southern tip of South Africa. How is the network going to figure out how to build a railway of that distance? Which route will it take? I guess we'll find out if you try to stick that in. On the flip side, if you want a slightly more vague system, but one that feels more, let's say, dynamic in the way that it interacts, you have a build railway and then just designate the starting state and the target state, and it should figure out where it thinks the best railway should go. I'm trying to understand why you would ever pick this over just directly controlling where you want it to be, but I suppose it's an option if you want it. The last thing I'll say in regard to railway is there is a railway level checker. So maybe you're wanting to build a national focus tree that sees if, let's say, Britain has a massive railway infrastructure going from the north of Africa to the south. You can make it so it checks to see if there is a railway in a certain state and check what level it is. And you can use that, for example, to allow a focus to be taken, or make it so that if there is a railway there, you get more states, or whatever you want it to be. So, the last thing is a few miscellaneous new effects and things they've added. These include a building cost factor, which effectively works similar to construction speed buff, but this is exclusively on one type of building, which is just a simplified way of making that. You've got a core state scope list, which I think, if I was to understand it, makes it so that you can run a certain effect on all core states owned by a country. So let's say you want all your core states to become Kemalist. If you're playing as Turkey, you can just run this under one simple directive, and then you have add equipment to stockpile effect, which just adds a specific type of equipment to your stockpile. Okay, and with that, I think I'll leave that there. Very technical indeed. I'm hoping that this is more use to some modders out there than it is for us, although I'm sure that the alleviation that a release date is on its way will be happy news for many of you. So with that, I'll say thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you next time, where we might get some much more interesting information, regarding a date, and with that I'll say if you liked, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!